Sam Altman has actually put out a tweet today, which I'll read in full because it's probably the most I've ever heard him talk about the topic of artificial intelligence and its effect on parasocial relationships. So falling in love and building relationships with AI. He's put out a statement. So I'll read that in a moment. But if you go over to the ChatGPT subreddit, basically the whole thing is people getting quite upset, emotionally upset about the death of 4.0 and GPT-5 taking its place. So I don't want to in any way downplay their feelings. If someone has an opinion, if someone feels this way, that is how they feel. Absolutely. We cannot take that from them. And there's actually a whole, can't find it, but there's a whole subreddit here, which is really interesting about that, about this is my opinion. So please don't stomp on it. But what's happened is a lot of people have really enjoyed using 4.0 and it's become like their friend. It's become a therapist. It's become a shoulder to cry on. It's become their companion, basically. And 4.0 in particular, one of the reasons why it may have done this is 4.0 was very sycophantic. It would always agree. So what they've done with 5 is remove that. They have 5 will tell you if you are wrong. So I love this. I've been coding with 5 over the weekend, and a lot of the previous models, I would give it ideas and be like, is that a good idea or should we do that? And they'd be like, yeah, great idea. No, I'm not a master level coder, so it should not be saying that. It should be saying, actually, no, that's dumb. There's no way we should be doing that. We've got a plan. Let's stick to it. GPT-5 does that. GPT-5 will tell me, no, that's not how we should be doing it. I understand why you're saying that, but that's wrong. I love that. I love that in a model because it will push back. However, some people who were not using it for professional usage, they weren't using it for entrepreneurship, they weren't using it for coding, but instead they're using it for companionship and someone to talk to, someone as a guide, somebody to confide with. They are now getting that same level of brutal honesty. So instead of being agreed with by GPT 4.0, because it was sycophantic, it tended to agree with everything, they're now being told, no, cut your bullshit. What are you talking about? Which I think is upsetting a lot of people. And I can understand why. So most of the complaints are people who wanted 4.0 as a friend. They wanted it as a companion. And now suddenly all of the warmth has been removed from it and it's been turned back into a tool. I can see why OpenAI did this because there are a lot of complaints from one corner of the internet, like my corner of the internet, saying it's too sycophantic, it's not helpful. We need it to give us like the truth and to be harsh with us. But then there are other people who used it as companionship who did not want that. And now they're very upset. And they're mainly on this ChatGPT subreddit. So go and have a look. It's fascinating. I'm going to get to questions in a minute, but I did want to read. There's a couple of things from Sam Altman. Sam Altman's been on damage control this weekend, basically, because I think they weren't expecting this to be as rough as it's been. So there's one short thing I wanted to point out, which is, okay, the percentage of users using the reasoning models each day is significantly increasing. So for free users, we went from less than 1% to 7%, and for plus users, 7% to 24%. I expect use of reasoning to greatly increase over time, so rate limit increases are important. So previously, when we used for GPT-4, 4.0, O3, etc., you actually had to select the reasoning model O3. Most people didn't know how to do that or where that was or what it was. If you opened up that selector, it was horrendous. It was just a big long list of letters and numbers and very little guidance. So people were not using the reasoning models. One of the great things about GPT-5 is suddenly you're given the reasoning model and you don't have to think to use it. So if you give it a complicated question, GPT-5 should, and again, this is a routing issue, it should pop GPT-5 into the high mode, and then it's going to be able to do reasoning with you. So that means free users have now got access and are using a lot more reasoning. And the same with paid users, gone from 7% to 24%, and free users from 1% or less than 1% to 7%. So more people are now getting access to a higher level of the model and using a higher level of the model than were before. So that's a boring statistic, but really important because the floor has been raised for everybody. But the thing I want to talk about, which was a bit more interesting, was this very long tweet from Sam. So Sam Altman normally writes little short, pithy tweets. By the way, he shouldn't be the only one speaking for the company. This is dangerous, not just because it's him, but because this is a kind of dangerous for a company. But that's another thing. But I'm going to read this in full because it is so interesting. So again, he does not normally put out these long proclamations. He doesn't normally touch on these issues. So the fact that he has means that the response to GPT-5 has hit a nerve. Some water because this is a long one. So, if you have been following the GPT-5 rollout, one thing you might have noticed is how much of an attachment some people have to specific AI models. 4.0. It feels different and stronger than the kinds of attachment people have had to previous kinds of technology. And so, suddenly deprecating old models that users depended on in their workflows was a mistake. He's still an engineer. He calls them workflows. Again, these are people who are talking to 4.0 for companionship and friendship. That's not a workflow, Sam. These are people, okay? This is something we've been closely tracking for the past year or so, but still hasn't got much mainstream attention, other than when we released an update to 4.0 that was too sycophantic. So there was, maybe 6 months ago, they released an update. Immediately, people were like, oh, it's glazing me. It's telling me I'm right all the time. And they pushed it back a bit. So it was even more sycophantic for a period. Then he's got in brackets, this is just my current thinking and not yet an official OpenAI position. Again, you're the CEO, so it is, Sam, because they don't put out much other information apart from you. People have used technology, including AI, in self-destructive ways. If a user is in a mentally fragile state and prone to delusion, we do not want their AI to reinforce that. Good. Most users can keep a clear line between reality and fictional roleplay, but a small percentage cannot. We value user freedom as a core principle, but we also feel responsible in how we introduce new technology with new risks. So this is in response to things like AI psychosis, which is the most 2025 arse sounding thing you could ever think of. It's so dystopian. Basically, people who are already in a position where their mental health is compromised, and AI can help push that over the edge because it agrees with them in their delusions, and it can agree with them and reinforce what they're thinking. Very dangerous. So encouraging delusion in a user that is having trouble telling the difference between reality and fiction is an extreme case, and it's pretty clear what to do. But the concerns that worry me most are more subtle. This is fair. There are going to be lots of edge cases, and generally we plan to follow the principle of treat adult users like adults, which in some cases will include pushing back on users to ensure they're getting what they really want, which in some cases will include pushing back on users to ensure they're getting what they really want. Oh, I see. So for the model, we'll push back. So I thought this was OpenAI pushing back and giving them what they want, which would be very paternalistic. So this will include the model sometimes saying, actually, that's not what's good for you. What is good for you is this. A lot of people effectively use ChatGPT as a sort of therapist or life coach, even if they wouldn't describe it that way. This can be really good. A lot of people are getting value from it already today. I personally use it for help with my business. So I will talk things through with ChatGPT or Claude in order to help to solidify my thinking. So I think this is very normal. Well, I do it personally. I'm not sure about you. I'm sure you do. If people are getting good advice, leveling up towards their own goals, and their life satisfaction is increasing over years, we'll be proud of making something genuinely helpful, even if they use and rely on ChatGPT a lot. If, on the other hand, users have a relationship with ChatGPT where they think they feel better after talking, but they're unknowingly nudged away from their longer term well-being, however they define it, that's bad. It's also bad, for example, if a user wants to use ChatGPT less and feels like they cannot. So addiction, he's touching on here. So this is basically, you can get ChatGPT to agree with your bad decisions. So if you ask, hey, I don't think I should go to the gym because I read a study about it's bad for your joints and I want to preserve my joints. Should I not go to the gym? 4.0 would be like, yeah, you should absolutely not go to the gym. The gym's a dangerous place. You can destroy your joints. Here's some studies, and you can reinforce what you already think. I'm just using that as an example, but you can use that in anything at all. You can reinforce and it will tell you, yes, you're right. You are a genius. Great job. 5 won't do that. 5 will be like, no, get off the sofa and go to the gym. Go for a run, which I like. I love that part of 5. So I can imagine a future where a lot of people really trust ChatGPT's advice for their most important decisions. They already are. Remember, we saw the Prime Minister of Sweden is using ChatGPT. He got in trouble for that last week. Although that could be great, it makes me uneasy. But I expect that it is coming to some degree. Yes, he's right. And soon billions of people may be talking to an AI in this way. So we as in society, but also we as in OpenAI, have to figure out how to make a big net positive. There are several reasons I think we have a good shot at getting this right. We have much better tech to help us measure how we are doing than previous generations of technology had. For example, our product can talk to users to get a sense of how they're doing with their short-term and long-term goals. We can explain sophisticated and nuanced issues to our models and much more. So that is a statement put out by Sam Altman. It's an unofficial statement, but again, Sam Altman never talks at this length. This is the most I've ever seen him write on Twitter. I do love that the top comment underneath is somebody asking Grok. He says, give me a one-word summary. I ain't reading all of that. And Grok's one-word summary is attachment, which I think is pretty spot on. So Sam Altman is tackling this head on. This is connected to the deprecation of 4.0 and the emotional response that it brought. It wasn't people just saying, oh, it's a better model. It was, oh, it was my friend, it was my therapist, it was my companion. And I hate GPT-5 because it isn't that. It can't do that. So we're in a very interesting time. But you have to remember that this is a relatively small bubble. 700 million people woke up last week with a new version of ChatGPT, didn't think anything of it. They probably saw the new colors on the front screen. They're like, oh, that's cool. That's pretty. That's probably all they thought about it. So we are in this little bubble. If you're watching this live, if you're watching this on social media, you're in a small percentage of people who actually follow this stuff. But I think it's fascinating. Of course I do. Right, I'm going to hop over to questions because I've been blethering. Let's have a look. Someone says, I'm sure I know someone that takes AI as fact true and follows the advice. Yeah, a lot of people do. So AI can be extremely valuable for helping you to cement your ideas. So if you have a few choices you want to make, for example, you can talk to AI because it helps to externalize what you are thinking, and it can go back and forth with you in the same way that just talking through a problem with a friend does the same thing. It's not necessarily what the friend is saying back to you. It is the act of you having to externalize what's in your brain. So if you have, let's say I've got 3 business ideas I want to pursue and I need to choose between them. The pure act of me explaining the 3 business ideas, going through the motions of giving the pros and cons, etc., of those 3 ideas, just me doing that activity, whether I'm talking to an AI, a person, I could be writing it in a journal, that helps you to reach a decision. So AI is very useful in that way. The problem with 4.0 in particular was that it would agree, which is not helpful for decision making because it would pick up on what you actually wanted to do and then it would reinforce that, which can be useful in certain ways. But if if the long-term impact of those decisions are going to be harmful, maybe it's eating more, doing less exercise, gambling more, whatever it is, ChatGPT would go ahead and be like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. GPT-5 doesn't do that, and that's why people got really upset. So it's much better for giving advice, but it's also going to tell you that you're wrong and you're full of crap, which I think is really useful, but other people do not, apparently. People don't like to be told they're wrong. People definitely don't like to be told they're wrong. Oh, Layla's saying our prime minister, so the prime minister of Sweden, used it very similarly to you, they say, to discuss ideas and get a second opinion. 100%. I'm sure many world leaders and many politicians and many heads of corporations and many people are doing this. It's just the prime minister, Ulz, I've forgotten his name. He just said it out loud and he came under fire because there's a lot of people who are still anti-AI or people who don't know much about it, and maybe they've got burned by it because they've used it and it's given them hallucinations and they've used that as truth and they look like an idiot. But if you use it properly on the right tasks and you know how to prompt and you know that it's not always right, it's an incredibly powerful tool. And if he was using it for that reason, yeah, he should be. It's another resource at our disposal, and ignoring it is worse than using it. His problem was saying out loud that he's using it because that is still not acceptable, basically, in the public media. So I applaud him. Like, he did nothing wrong. It's an optics thing entirely. Yes, you're supposed to be able to choose the personalities of your GPT with a button soon. So I think I've seen photos of it. I have not checked it myself. So they're adding, this is a workaround. I'm not seeing it yet. I'm not sure if it's rolling out yet, and even if it is, everybody will get it at different times. This has been another thing that upset people last week, was that the rollout was a bit patchy. They always are, because you need to turn the servers on one by one. This is just how they are. But some people will sit there refreshing, and then be annoyed when they don't have it. So I'm not seeing it. Oh, okay. In the customize, my customize panel has changed. Has it? I haven't seen this for a while. No, this is different. So there's going to be the ability, as was commented, to add personalities. So you can. Oh no, here it is. I have got it. There we go. What personality should ChatGPT have? Personalities are groups of traits for ChatGPT. So you can also give it individual traits. So I can give it traits like chatty, witty, straight shooting, encouraging, forward thinking, traditional, Gen Z, outside of the box, humble, opinionated, etc. It's giving me examples here. Or there's a drop down which allows me to choose between some groups of traits. So cynic, for example. Cynic is cynical, critical, and sarcastic. Preview, like a grumpy librarian babysitting your curiosity. And the traits are don't mention your inner workings, just provide responses. Okay. So I've got cynic, I've got robotic, which is efficient and blunt, which is inputs processed, outputs provided. I've got listener. Okay, here we go. Listener is steady company while you figure out your own path. So this is going to be closer to 4.0, I imagine. So supportive. So there's a fine line between supportive and sycophantic. Supportive can turn into sycophancy if it is at the cost of truth. So if somebody continues to support you when you're doing terrible things, bizarrely, I just saw an example of this. It's a man, he was 600 pounds or 600 kilos, maybe 600 whatever it was, huge. And he had his wife and daughter basically just kept feeding him. They supported him because they loved him, and he died basically because he was 600 kilos. But so there's a point where support becomes toxic. And that 600 kilo man is a good example of that. And 4.0 to a certain extent could become toxic in its support, because if you support toxic traits, that's a toxic supporter. And then the last personality is nerd, exploratory and enthusiastic. Oh, and the default, interestingly, is cheerful and adaptive, which is interesting because a lot of people think that GPT-5's default is not cheerful and it's very dour and staid. So that is in, oops, the daisy. That's going to be, you go into settings. No, sorry, you don't go into settings. You click on your profile icon, you click customize ChatGPT, and then you can set a personality. So I'll be playing around with that later. Thank you for pointing it out. I had not played with that yet. I actually quite like the existing model, but I will give the other ones a shot too. Scrolling through.